So, you were laughing and cackling on the table. You were having a good time, weren't you? You're playing your 7-deuce offsuit. You were getting lucky on the river. And you were just having a good old time, laughing and cackling with your friends. And then all of a sudden, reality stepped in. And now you ain't laughing so much. Now you found yourself in my neck of the woods. You've crawled down into the deepest and darkest corners of YouTube, and you have found me. And now it's time for me to insult you. And you will take it because you are a degenerate fool. But let's get on with the story. I'm going to tell you something today that you probably never even heard of before. And most likely, you'll never see it again in your lifetime. Have you heard of the mysterious envelope at the George Bush Sr. funeral? Well, if you haven't, look it up on YouTube. It's all the rage. Everybody wants to know what was in the mysterious envelope. But that's not why I'm here to talk to you, little snowflakes, today. Not about the envelope. No. I can tell you that there were 5 presidential souls at this funeral. 5. 4 of them were alive. They say they still had blood pumping through their pathetic, weak, flabby carcasses. 4 of them were still alive. 1 of them was dead, I've already told you, George Bush Sr. Yes, Georgie's going on to see his master. Now, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm going to tell you a true tale today that might never happen to you again in your lifetime. Rare indeed. The game is Texas Hold'em, and everybody who plays it is a lost soul, just like these 5 presidents. They were all lost souls, lost for eternity. 4 are still there. Like I said, 4 still have blood pumping through their flabby, weak carcasses. Just like most of the flabby, weak poker players eating too many donuts and sitting around waiting for the nuts. They all think they have an out. Some of them think they have many outs. The truth is, they only got 1 out. And Georgie Bush Sr. just found it. He just found the only out, the underworld. And I'm not talking about the one you're living in now. No, not that underworld. No, I'm talking about hell. That's your only out, is hell. So on with the story. What is it? What might you never see again in your lifetime? Well, 1, you're never going to see the deep state giving the evil side eye, stink eye, the glare from hell to a sitting president. That's what happened here at the Bush Sr. funeral. The whole deep state was glaring down Donald Trump. You might never ever see that again in your lifetime. And the next thing that you're never going to see in your lifetime is the board that I'm going to describe to you, the board on Texas Hold'em Poker. And you thought you knew her. No, you don't know her. You don't know poker at all. You can play her for a lifetime, and you can go to your grave, but you're not going to know her. She's a fleeting lady luck. Sometimes she'll sit right beside you, and she'll put her arms around you, and she'll give you a little kiss. Other times, she'll leave you hanging, and she'll walk away with the other guy. No. Trust me. You just don't know her. But I'm going to tell you the tale. I'm going to tell you a story that most of you little snowflakes are not going to even believe. Seriously. I can see you now with your little toboggans. You got your little tennis shoes on and your toboggans. And when you hear this, you're going to put your nose in the air. And you're going to say, bullshit! Impossible. Well, the problem is I saw it with my own eyes. And in 40 years of playing poker, I've only seen it happen 1 time. Now you got to understand, no limit poker has not been around forever. There used to be a game called Limit Texas Hold'em Poker. And this is the game we're talking about. Before No Limit was all the rage, we were playing Limit, Texas Hold'em Poker. And we were at the Excalibur. The game was a small game, 4-8. 4-8 limit game. But that's what most all the casinos ran back then, little 4-8 Texas Hold'em game. Like I said, I was at the Excalibur. I believe it was in the late 90s, somewhere around there, maybe the early 2000s. Don't hold me to it. So let's get right down to brass tactics. There must have been about 8 players that saw the flop. The flop came set over set over set. Believe it or not much action going on there. It was just, somebody bet, a bunch of calls, no raises on the flop. Everybody was sitting back for the turn because the turn is the bigger bet. And the bigger bet put the raise in. So pretty much the whole field, maybe one person dropped out. The whole field sees the turn. And there's another set on the turn that comes. So let me repeat this because you may not believe it. On the flop, set over set over set. 3 cards on the flop, 3 people have a set. The turn comes, another asshole gets a set. And like I said, all hell broke loose. Somebody opened up, there was a bet, and then there was a raise, and a raise, and a raise. And what do we call that? It was capped. Back then, most places there was a bet and 3 raises. That was the max. Capped it off. The dealers, after that 3rd raise, the dealer said it's capped. Put your money in there. Now, in a little 4-8 game, when it's capped on the turn, that's the big bet, the $8 bet, sometimes people get all in by that time. So it's kind of a big pot. And sure enough, there was a couple all-in players. So just to make sure you know what's going on before we hit the river, we got 3 lucky players. They got set over set over set on the flop. And then another guy gets a set on a turn. And then there's a couple all-in players. But by now you probably guessed it. On the river, another guy gets a set. Now, what were these sets? I can't really remember them all. I remember there was like 3 and a 5 and a jack. And I believe it was, don't hold me to it, but I believe it was possibly a king on the river that snapped everybody off. So you're probably never going to see this ever again. I mean, like I said, it took me over 40 years to see this. I mean, I've had probably I've had at least 4 or 5 royal flushes. In 40 years, I've had over 4 or 5 royal flushes. But I've never seen this but one time. 5 sets on the board. Now, all you no limit junkies out there, you're probably saying at this point, well, it could never happen in No Limit. You old timers, old school fools. That's way back then. That never happened again now, son. So who you think you're talking to? And I thought about it. And when you're talking about these little 1-2 No Limit poker games, my first thought was, no, it probably could never happen. But then I started thinking a little bit deeper. And then I said to myself, how about if you get a game where there's a bunch of short players in there? I mean, they don't all have $600-700 in front of them. Maybe I've seen some silly little games on the strip and places where maybe, most of the tables sitting there with $100 to $200. In that situation where you've got 7-8 players and they've all got less than $200 in front of them, I'm telling you that it is mathematically possible. You could see the same thing in No Limit because they could all go in. Everybody could get all in with their hands. I mean, very unlikely. Like I said, very unlikely. That's why we're talking about this. I'm going to put it on record that, yes, I saw this at the Excalibur. I believe it was the late 90s or early 2000s. Saw it with my own eyes. 5 sets on the board. I don't expect to see it again. And if you think I'm joking or making this up, I believe it can be confirmed. There was a poker dealer there. I think Greg Maddox. You ever heard of Greg Maddox, the big baseball star? Well, his dad worked there, David Maddox. I don't know if he was working that night, but he probably heard about it. If he wasn't there, I can't remember if he was there that night, but I'm pretty sure if he wasn't there, he probably heard about it and it got around. So I know that there, I don't know who the manager was on duty that time, but I know there's the dealer. The dealer remembers it, and the manager remembers it. So this can be confirmed. You start digging into the history of all the people who worked at the Excalibur at that time frame, and you'll be able to confirm this story. Okay, snowflakes. You can all go back to your regularly scheduled poker vloggers now. You know, those ones that get all the favorable flops and the ones that drink too much coffee. And I think I heard about one the other day. He's playing with a $400 bankroll. Yeah, a dealer. I mean, that would be that's for a whole new story. I think my next story, I'll talk about it. Poker dealers who play poker with a $400 bankroll. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, adios.